Latina Leadership Podcast, the podcast made for Latinas by Latinas. Get comfortable, amiga, and enjoy the conversations.
Hola, and welcome to another episode of the Latina Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Anjelica. On today's episode, I have Rosibel and Jatnna. These amazing ladies are two also podcasters called Tres Bold Latinas for Michigan. Ladies, I welcome to the podcast first and foremost.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So I'm on your looking at what it is that you ladies are doing, and on top of that, I do have your bios in front of me. As I'm reading through it, this is a very, dare I say, strange place to land with your family. from two completely different places. I've heard of Mexicans in Michigan, and even that's difficult to be like, really? How did y'all end up there? But from the Dominican Republic and then from New York, Michigan, of all places, right?
Yeah. Family ties. So, we can tell you a little bit about why our family decided to.
Well, are y'all related?
No, but we are best friends and comadres.
Okay. Oh. Well, let's get started with this. I want to hear kind of your story and how your family obviously ended up there in Michigan. And I do want to hear both.
Yes. So every Latino's dream is to have their own business. I would say most of us, because we're all hustlers. Llegan a este país detrás de un sueño. So my mom first lived in New York, and then she married my dad and brought him from Dominican Republic. And he was always a butcher in New York, and he would say, I'm going to have my own butcher shop. And as he ran the numbers, he's like, this is the capital that I have. And it worked out. As you know, New York is an expensive lifestyle. One day he comes to Grand Rapids, Michigan, actually, to visit some of my mom's family. And he sees a corner shop. It was an ice cream shop that was on sale. And he was like, oh my goodness, that's the cost? That's the rent? And they're like, yes. And a week later, he told my mom, we're moving to Michigan. She's like, what? No way. And that's how it is. So almost, 25 years later, I grew up in a family business called Bird Meat Farm, Carniceria Latina, focuses on fresh meat, specialty grocery store. And I say because of that store has molded me to be who I am. So that's our story of how we ended up in Michigan.
Well, congrats to your dad. I did see that so he was a butcher already in New York.
Yes.
So he already knew what he was doing. Jatnna, I'd love to hear how it is that your family ended up also from the Dominican Republic too.
Yeah, which is a little different, right? Because at least New York, it's still cold. Yeah, I winter in New York, but not in the DR, right? So my parents, I was about 14 years old when my parents decided to kind of send my siblings and I to the U.S. My aunt had moved to the U.S. a long time ago. And so she had told my parents, like, hey, I want to bring the kids to the U.S. I want to make sure that they have, you know how Hispanics are. They want a better education for you. They want you to succeed and things like that. And so it is, obviously, it's an island. So my aunt kept, asking my parents, like, hey, just send them with me. They can come. And so my parents weren't ready at the time. But then, we grew up a little bit more. And so my parents then were like, I think it's time for them to go and just have a better education in the U.S. And again, my aunt already lived here. So they were like, okay, we're going to go ahead and, get it done and send them over to you. And then, take care of them. And obviously, my parents still lived in the DR at the time. And so we would obviously go see them maybe every couple of months, and we would talk to them every day. But it was mainly educational, for education purposes, essentially, that they wanted us to come here. And so I came to high school. I finished high school here, went to, university, got my master's and my bachelor's. And so that's kind of how it all started because they wanted us to be successful
in education. But you were older when you got there. How
Yes,
was
I
that
was
for you?
14 and
Yeah.
my sister was 12. And so, and then I do have a little brother, not so little anymore. He's 26 now, but at the time, and it was difficult. I'm not going to lie because I was already in high school. I was in ninth grade at the time. And so did take a while. We did know English at the time. So, because we did go to a private school in the Dominican Republic. So we had to learn English. Like my parents actually invested for us to be able to like understand and speak the language and all of that. But I think it's still different when you have to move to a different country and have to like talk to people in English all the time, right? Like lo que yo aprendí allá wasn't really necessarily like exactly the same que cuando yo llegué aquí and I had to speak the language like on a daily, right? Like allá we could, like, yeah, I learned, pero no tenía que hablar inglés. But once I got here, it was like, oh, this is a shocker. Like I have to talk to people and I have to learn and I have to like keep up with them. So it was hard. But then, I guess like, and obviously I was kind of, I don't know, I felt some type of way about my parents at the time. So I didn't really understand why they chose to do that to us at the time. So, después que crecí, and then, obviously as an adult now and having my own children, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I truly understand what they were trying to do. So yeah.
Rosibel, when you talk about your family's business and watching your dad go through the struggles as an entrepreneur, as a person of like really trying to make it work, was it difficult for him? And how did you learn from what I guess that leap that he took? Or is it natural for your family just to be entrepreneur? Is it that something that nomás tienen entre ustedes and you're like, yeah, this is life. I don't know, 9 to 5 who? Like does that how was it for you?
It's like you're hitting a trigger like 9 to 5 home. Because it's funny, I am in a 9 to 5 because so is my mom and dad. So, but my mom was more of like, this is a big risk, and my dad entrepreneur. So he grew up in the Dominican Republic in a farm and a colmado, which is like a corner shop, and he went to school to be into agriculture. So it is agronomo allá en ese país, and um, he's always had the vision. And as I grew up, I would always say, I'm going to work at the store. Like I went and got my bachelor's and then my master's because I said, I know I need a piece of paper because that's how you get ahead in life. As the Latinos are like, you need to go to school. Like this is what we're working for. And I wouldn't say, yeah, I'm going to take over the store. But then as I grew up more, my parents would say, well, we don't want this lifestyle for you. Now you're married, now you have your first child, and do you want to be here like us? So it was like little by little they convinced me that it's a better lifestyle to go and work at a 9 to 5. But to be honest, till this day, I still feel that my heart, my mind is still there at the family business. Like I'm still involved, not as in daily operations, but to me, I have been able to see that when it's success and the things that you're able to teach your children, like all the morals, the work ethic, how to treat people, how to be empathetic, just basically everything. I say I have learned it from watching my parents interact also, when it comes to personal life and business life. Like I would say like that to me, I've been able to see that in life. You're like, okay, yeah, they're entrepreneurs, but at a young age, I've been able to know that money comes and goes, but the lifestyle that you live and the impact that you make to people is really what marks a difference. So to me, like I would say that's the biggest takeaway to me on seeing entrepreneurs is like, yes, they've been hustlers, but then how have they impacted others people's lives just hustling? And so to this day, and now is like when they're actually taking time for themselves. So I'm actually seeing like, oh, all these fruits of labors are coming to life. And it's like, that's the life that I want. Like, yes, I could do it differently. I still would love to be an entrepreneur. But I'm still able to see that they're being able to say, like, I built a successful life. I put both my parents put my brother and I to school. And now like they have their grandchildren. I have a 10-year-old. I have a 5-year-old too, but the 10-year-old, he says like, no, mom, mama and papa cannot sell the store because mommy, you're gonna take it over, and I'm gonna take it over too. My brother's there now. Actually, we switched roles. He was in corporate, and then he took over. Now he's in the store. Now I'm in corporate now, but my brother still calls me. He's like, yeah, esta es la jefa. Like, this is the CEO, and he tells my son, no, Max, he's gonna take over this. So it's just fun to see the family dynamics of how, yes, we are the family, and we can never have a family dinner without talking about the business. We still need to fix that, but it's part of our lives. Like, to me, like, I love to see how my kids, I go there every single day, and they get excited to go there to the store. Like, I love to see of how my son is a little entrepreneurship mindset. Like, he's already got in school for selling stuff, and they're like, he has the right mindset but not at the right place. And it's just lovely to see that. They're like, yeah, he's taking after his grandpa. And my husband's also an entrepreneur, but a lot of the traits that my son has definitely been able from him seeing his grandparents at the family business.
Oh yes, I had to ask because that's a lot of what we talk about here on the podcast itself. We have a whole conference dedicated to entrepreneurship, so I had to ask the question about entrepreneurship and the family-run business. But let's get into the meat of the stuff. How did y'all, two Dominican girls, found each other in Michigan, or did y'all find each other in Dominican Republic and you're like, you go to me too, or how did that happen? How did this dynamic duo come about?
So actually, Rosie's husband and my husband had known each other since they were kids. Essentially, they were here
From baseball.
Yeah,
right?
like they play baseball for fun. So they knew each other way before Rosie and I actually connected. Like, I knew of Rosie, but I never really like actually connected with her. But then we actually work together in the same organization. She works, it's the same division essentially, but different departments. So one day we connected because I saw her, she was doing something for her department essentially. And so I was like, oh, at the time I was in a role where I was managing a conference. It was called Professionals of Color Conference at the organization we work at. And I was given the opportunity to lead that conference for the first time. And the organization had never done that, essentially. It's an organization that now it's trying to be diverse. They're getting there. But at the time it was like nowhere, like you couldn't talk about that at all. So that was the first step they were taking to bring like an actual conference from the outside to allow professionals of color to get together in a room and be able to connect with each other and get the resources they need. So it was my first time leading the conference, and then I was asked to do it a second time, and so I was able to pick the team that I wanted to support that conference. And so I had heard of Rosie, I knew about her, we hadn't connected, but I knew that she would be a great fit for that team of people that were putting together the conference. And so after that, we got her in the team. We got to work together. I got to know her a lot better, professionally, but also personally. And then we became like best friends, essentially.
It was the meeting after the meeting for like an hour
Yes,
in the parking lot.
And we just learned so much about each other
Go.
that I was just like, oh my gosh, like we have to be friends. Like, I don't know how we knew about each other, but I don't know why we never connected. And, more like, I don't know, personally. And so, yeah, from there, that's when we decided to just like, you became besties. And
That's where the podcast also
yeah.
was born from.
That's so cool. It's so hard to make friends as you're older. Well, not difficult, but it is to like, sometimes you have to have children around the same age. You have to have, or you're forced to like interact with them because se juntan and it's your sister-in-law and that's your friend. And you know what I'm saying? So it is a little bit difficult because our what we do as an adult differs. We don't go to school every day and we don't hang out with our friends every day and we don't find those commonalities, share those secrets, share those things. But you guys took the time out of your every day to be able to like get to know each other. So before I even ask you about the podcast, really quick, I want to ask this. What is it, and you can each answer, what is it from one to the other that you say, yeah, this is why we connected, outside of being Dominican, outside of, being from the same país? What was it that you were like, yeah, I get this, girl. I get it. I get it. What was that?
That's a great question. We've never been asked that question.
No, as you were speaking as adults, the word mindset came to mind. Uh, I would say we're totally different, but once it comes to, I would just say where the word mindset is very similar. Of like, my husband will always say, Jana's super ambitious. Like, you gotta be more like her. And then it's like, Jana was surprised when she said that because she's like, I see you as a successful, ambitious person too. But I would say to me, like I'll go first. I know I've shared this before. It was more on having someone taking the time and asking you every day, like, good morning, how are you? Like, I never really had anyone say that to me. Like, to me, I would say that's what makes it unique. And also having someone believing in you and seeing things that you don't see in yourself. So just saying like, oh, well, you have this quality and you could do this and you could do that. And it's like, oh, really? Like, so it was just like in my environment, yes, I would talk to people, but it wasn't someone that I had someone like constantly, I would say, checking up on you. Not checking up on you, but just connecting, like just without any interest, you know. So so it was like, okay, like it's like I found another person that doesn't really hang out that's like a homebody and just works all the time. And it's like, oh, I never thought we'd find someone that it's okay that I don't need to go out and party or to just I don't know, or gossip or talk about guys. Like, it was just like, oh, there's someone else a little bit weird like me out there. So we're not weird, but it's like, like it was usually like I always thought like for you to have friends, like, oh, tú tienes que dar un chisme or algo. So it's like our conversations are always very uplifting and educational and learning from each other. So, all right, but I'll leave it on to you.
So for me, I just thought that similar thing that's, the similar things she said, that it wasn't just about going out. And I was also at a point in my life that, like, I had kids, and most of the friends I had didn't really have kids, or the kids were older for some reason. And so there wasn't that connection. They didn't understand that, like, okay, now, like, I have other priorities, and so I'm sorry that I can't get back to you whenever you want me to get back to you, or hang out with you whenever you want me to do that. And so when I connected with her, then I found out that she had kids, and that we kind of had the same, I don't know, like, similar beliefs. And even though we're pretty opposite, like she said, we're still connected because we believed in the same things. Like, we wanted to uplift each other. And she has a way to, even though, like, we may disagree at times, like, we kind of know how to do that. Like, we don't have to, like, well, I said this and you said that. It's very like, okay, whatever, we can move on. Like, we don't really make a big deal out of those things. So yeah.
There's a lot to be said in mutual respect for each other, even though y'all are very different, very two different dynamics of what makes the podcast, which is why I think y'all started the podcast, right? So leading into the podcast, why the podcast? Or and it's not like, tell me, so what makes you think you're like better and you're gonna, no. Like, I really want to know, why did you decide, okay, a lot of the times we think to ourselves, we need to record this conversation, because I think me myself should have heard this 10 years ago. Right? So why the podcast?
So after we had, connected and then became besties type of thing, one day, we always talk about this story. There's this lady in the Dominican Republic. Her name is Iram Toribio, and she has her own podcast. And so, I don't know, one day we shared, I don't know if
I shared it with you.
Yeah, she shared an episode with me, and where she was talking about something specific, and she was like, oh, this is a really good episode. It was very uplifting, whatever she was talking about in the episode. And I was like, you know what? We can do that. Like, there's nothing in Grand Rapids, Michigan. There's no one in Grand Rapids that has like an actual podcast that can talk about how we as Latinas, Spanish speaking, and moms and millennials, like all the things that we have to go through. There's like conferences, there's like networks now that like in Grand Rapids that were created like after we had the podcast. Like
there was one network for Latinas.
Kind of like a network, yeah, but it was more like you get together and you do those things. Like it wasn't about like bringing in other people and other women specifically and talking about their struggles and their experiences and how, you know, they live here and they go through things and like not, they can't really share that with like anyone else because you have to be mindful, or you have to be careful how you share certain things, and because you don't want to piss off someone else. And it's just like, how much do you share? And up to this day we still talk about those things where we're like, oh, I don't know that I want to share that because also like there's people that we work with that listen to our podcast, right? So, you know, they're very interested, and they're like, oh, like I love you guys' topics, and like what's the next topic. But then we're still thinking about like, well, there are things that we can still say, because like if management is listening to the podcast, then like I don't know how to feel about that. So we still have to be careful, but we still try to be ourselves as much as we can.
I would say for me, it's just being the vulnerability. Like it's called bold, and when Jatnna was like bold, I don't think she thought I would be as vulnerable as I am, and Jatnna's getting more there.
Yeah,
I think I'm inspiring that. But yes, and it was, so I still remember we were at the date at the conference that we were
planning. We planned.
And we're just there, okay, it's about to start. And I'm like, oh, did you listen to the episode? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, and I was thinking, I want to start a podcast. I'm like, oh, that's great. Good for you.
And I was like, with you.
And then she's like, but I want to start it with you. I'm like,
she was like, what?
What am I going to talk about? So when I say of like people believing in you and seeing qualities that you don't see in yourself, that's basically what I was referring to, because as you can see here, like Jatnna talks more. I'm more of the reserved person. I mean, I let loose, but it takes time. I'm that type of introvert. But I never thought that I would have a voice, that I would be able to connect with people, that I could be, share my mistakes or share my success stories to inspire others and for people to learn from me, because I grew up with the whole low self-confidence, still work on that. But it's like, when I would hear people like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing that. And sometimes we are bolding up. They're like, does your husband listen to this? Does he know that you guys talk about them? I think our goal this year is to bring them on.
Yeah, so people see that, like, they know.
But the whole podcast, that's what I love about it, to just be ourselves and talk about our experiences, and now bringing in badass Latinas and women to just talk about their businesses or their experience or their careers. And yeah, it's been 4 years now, so it's like, wow, like it's been a while. And like I would say, like we still have big visions to, like, okay, we're starting out here and just voicing it on radio and then YouTube, but we also would love to, hey, let's start having Dos Bold Latinas conferences, because it's like we want to be able to touch more women and keep inspiring them, learning and growing from each other.
That sounds amazing. When y'all do it, please send it out. I'd love to share it with all the other Latinas who potentially can, join from neighboring states and stuff like that. So congratulations on all the amazing things. Pero here, I want some thought into this question, because I ask all the Latinas that come on here, do you consider and I want individual answers. Do you consider yourself a leader? Why or why not?
So personally, I consider myself a leader because, again, like some of the things that we are trying to do, I know you said individual, but like I still do a lot of things with Rosie, kind of like as my, co-founder for Dos Bold Latinas. But some of the things that we're trying to do are things that not a lot of women are willing to do, essentially, but they do want to see and join, things that other women are doing. They may not be brave enough to be able to do it, but they want to be able to actually like go to, our stuff and listen to our stuff and just like be able to relate to our experiences or the stories of the women that we bring into our into the conversation in our podcast. not only am I a leader within, that area of my life, but I'm also like like an actual people leader in an organization. So that also kind of like, helps me, um, having to like have other people trust me and having to lead other people and work with them and mold them and like develop them. It's something that like I take pride on. And then I also have kids. So I also kind of have to lead my kids, right? On a daily, and make sure that they're, to be a role model for them and be able to make sure that they're, I don't know, that they're really good human beings, because I mean, let's be honest, like it's really hard to do that nowadays. And so all of that as a woman and being Latina and a woman of color, like all of those things that we do, like that already makes us a leader. So like, that's kind of why, yeah, I consider myself a leader.
That's an amazing answer. Rosibel?
To me, I would say I was born into like, okay, I'm the title because tú eres la hija de los jefes. Like, you're supposed to be a leader. But I honestly could say with proudness that I've been able to lead by example. So I would be also out there doing the work to show people how it should be done, like, and I wouldn't do it intentionally. Like, it was just something that would come naturally because my parents always taught me that the boss is supposed to work harder than employee. Like, and usually it's not that way. So I was able on that side of the, like, in the whole family business, even though automatically I'm giving the title or the power to be a leader, I've been able to develop myself to lead by example. And also always showing the whole caring, even though that it could be double-sided sword that, sometimes like, okay, you show the caring leadership, but then you go into like the assertive leadership and you're caught off guard, especially with me, because like, oh, you're so nice, but then wait a minute, you're being assertive. Like, I didn't see that coming. And then in the work life, I don't have the title of being a leader like as Jatnna does, but I, in conversations or when I talk to people, like, I love learning on what is their passion, like what is that they enjoy doing, and I'm like, okay, you could do this, and here are the steps. So I catch myself already doing that, and it's like just amazing of how I I just honestly love to listen to people, and it's like, to me, that is one of the most important things in and being a leader, like that active listening and showing that you care, so that you can really help them to do whatever they're going through. And also being a mom, I always say that yes, you constantly got to be on. Um, so with that, like, with my first son, I said I got to know what love really is, and then with my daughter, it's like that's when I started learning of what self-love is, and we talk a lot about that in the podcast. So definitely being a leader in that way, and also just being a woman of the household. Like, it took me a couple years to understand that yes, the man is the man of the house, but at the end of the day, like, even when you read in scriptures, like, the woman is the one that is the head, like, that manages the household. So it's like, hey, I am a leader in this, and I could make these decisions, and the way that my emotions are the ones that are gonna like really be the vibe of this family. Like, just yesterday, my I don't know, I felt a little bit off, and I was at swimming lessons with my son. He's like, "Mommy, why are you mad?" And I was like, "That is true. I do feel upset, but I don't really know why." And and I just gave him an answer, but then I had to like analyze. I'm like, okay, this is why I'm upset, and I had to change that because I'm like, I don't want my kids to be like, okay, mommy's mad, so now we're gonna be like mad or sad. So I would say that's also of how I've been able to learn, like, hey, it takes leadership to, like, yes, we just recorded about emotional intelligence with with Jana's sister. I was like, wow, this is all about learning your emotions and managing that. So, yeah, I will leave it at that, like, in different aspects in my life, and just even just being the eldest daughter. Also,
yes,
already
we're ready.
Like
being the eldest daughter,
yes,
is like you're already the manager in the family,
and the oldest. Definitely.
Y'all are both the oldest daughters from both families.
Yes.
Oh, y'all are carrying a lot. Y'all are carrying
so
a lot.
We talk about the baggage we have to carry on that too,
for everybody.
It's like,
Oh my
we
God.
gotta set the example, be the leader, and
There's a lot of
our
expectations placed
Yes.
on us, so we kind of have to deliver.
Yeah. Yeah.
And been engraved into our, who we are. So that's how we do things.
Yeah,
Oh.
so I try to catch myself.
I felt that. I'm sorry. I felt the pain of like, yeah, we're first daughters from like both families, and this is the. I was like, dang, ow. I'm the last. I'm the smallest of 5. So
lucky you.
I do, because I see my older sister is 12 years older than me, so I do get to see a lot of the yeah, I feel sorry sometimes, but then sometimes I'm like, I don't feel so sorry for you, because my mom speaks, and I mean, she speaks, my sister speaks, and my mom listens, right? It comes with the territory, and I'm like, so she better know what she's talking about.
Right.
It's a big responsibility.
Right. We tend to have that, I don't know, that title, right? Like where we have to make decisions for the family, and our parents basically have to listen, right? Because it's like, well, you have this expectation of me, so be ready to receive what you're asking me to do. So,
and especially a daughter of immigrants, right? They lean on you a lot. Because they know their country, they know what that is like, but this one is different, and there's a lot of expectation of like, we're all learning, so teach me too while we're on the way learning. Pero without that being said, I do want you ladies to get back to your Sunday, because we're recording on Sunday for listeners who are recording. I want you to get back to your families. So before I lead off, is there anything that you'd like to share that I did not touch on?
I would say, just to every Latina out there, like, always follow your heart, be yourself, and just think about, like, hey, if I were to be writing a love letter to myself, what would I say to myself? And I would say that really opens up a reflection to, like, hey, who are you right now, and where do you stand right now? Because when we really have those self-reflections, that's when you're like, all right, where do I have my 2 feet on this ground?
A love letter to myself. I'm going to do that today, actually. Today's a good day to do it. Self-care Sunday.
Yeah. And for me, I would say, for all those Latinas out there, just to make sure that they're bringing other Latinas with them to, wherever, opening those doors, just because, and mentoring them, and, the other generations, just because if we don't do that for each other, I feel like there's enough, how they say, like, pie out there for all of us.
Sale para todas.
Exactly. El sol sale para todas. And so I think we have to be more intentional about like helping each other and building each other up, rather than like, because we see that a lot where like they're just tearing each other down and just like talking about each other. And when in reality, we want everyone to be successful. Like, we want to be successful, but we are happy when someone else is successful, especially if they're Latina. So it's just making sure that you're mentoring other women and opening, those doors for them and bringing them along, because it's hard out here, and we have to kind of like look out for each other.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, that was an amazing conversation, Jatnna and Rosibel. These are 2 bold Latinas, those bold Latinas. Follow them on Instagram. Listen to their episodes across all platforms, correct? YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Facebook, am I assuming?
Just Instagram.
Just Instagram.
Okay, just Instagram. Okay, but if, you can find them everywhere across those platforms where you listen to your podcast the most. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. And of course, if there's anything that you'd love for me to share with the community, I'm always here. Bueno,
Thank you so
con
much for
eso.
having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Con eso, we'll see you next time.
What did you think of the conversation? If you enjoyed what you heard, let us know in the comments. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you for listening to the Latina Leadership Podcast, and we will see you next time.